Next item on the agenda, BZA petition 2022-1, Kirk Cummer for Nutrien is requesting a variance in an I-1 zoning classification from the provisions of the Decatur County zoning ordinance number 1244 and 1210. A, for a side setback from the required 60 feet to 15 feet. B, rear setback from the required 60 feet to 38 feet. And C, nearest residence from the required 600 foot to approximately 275 feet. The property is currently owned by Nutrien Ag and is located at 531 South County Road 350 West, Greensburg, Indiana, Washington Township. Kurt, you could come up and explain your project. And we've got the new drawing, yeah.
And this is Casey, came up with the Nutrien Ag. Joanne Ford's is the neighbor, so
To the south.
the south, so that was where we're getting the variance, I guess, setback from. And they're needing an office building now.
So
You have the new,
that's the old one.
Yeah, the new one I have here.
so she basically didn't want the big building, kind of that close. So basically what we're needing is a 600 foot setback from the house, so we're going industrial, and then needing an office built by that scale where everybody can kind of see what the other is, to see what's coming in now. And she did not have an issue with the smaller building is what, just trying to keep it so she's happy with it basically, is what we're doing. And we increased the setback also there.
Yeah,
So it's no longer 15 when we moved it to 35. She got one at 30 feet, so we went 35.
Okay. And to clarify, where you're showing that new shop building now is actually a different piece of property.
It is.
That
The
you're
main
going
reason I put that on there is
to clarify.
they are, it's the 600 foot setback, it's like 5 something anyway. Just to keep it, she might have to come back in 600 foot setback for that because they're purchasing that property.
They're gonna purchase 7 acres from you.
Can we go ahead and do that?
Yes.
Okay. So in other words, we can grant that
Yes,
now,
right,
and then if they're gonna rezone
the entire.
the entire thing, okay,
Once they get all the property, they're put together.
as into one parcel, okay. So are you guys clear on what the intent here is? Basically, you're just working off of existing infrastructure, so really nothing changes drive-wise or anything.
Right.
But we do wanna make it that the variance from the nearest residence is 600 feet to 500 feet now, approximately.
Well, this first building is gonna be 295. We just increased that from 275 to 295.
So we just want the 295.
The rear setback does not.
It's not in the way now because we moved that building. And once they rezone the whole thing, the other two, that other building, the setbacks are fine on it. So basically the other structure is basically for the being close to the residence, which it's further, you know, it's 200 feet further from the one that she's okay in, I guess. for those days.
But we still do
You
need
do have the side setback.
a side
Yeah.
setback from 60 to 30 feet, is that correct?
35.
35.
Yeah, sorry.
Does any board members have any questions for me? Hearing none, I'll look for any public comment on it. Anyone has any objections or comments? Okay. motion?
Make the motion that we vote on BZA 2022-1.
Can we clarify what modifications are in?
Side setback from the required 60 feet to 35 feet. The rear setback is removed. And the nearest residence from the required 600 to approximately 295 feet.
And to be honest with you, because they got that section of the next three, they sort of thought they wanted to get somebody who would, to be honest with you.
Thank you.
Scared?
Carried.
And I'll read the votes. Jamie Livingston, yes. Joyce Friendly, yes. Rick Honing, yes. Brad Shudy, yes. And Gary Fisher, yes.
Your exception is passed, and we'll look for you guys next month. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Next item on the agenda, BZA petition 2022-7, Open Road Renewable LLC, Ice Miller LLP is requesting a special exception in an A1 zoning classification for construction of a battery energy storage system facility. Its property is currently owned by Robert and Elaine Balmer and is located west of 2080 West, 400 North, Greensburg and Adams Township. I believe we have a representative here. You can state your name, please.
Sure. Good evening, members of the board. For the record, my name is Tim Oaks. I'm an attorney at Ice Miller with offices at One American Square in Indianapolis. We are here to present to you our request for a special exception for a battery energy storage system, which is I suspect a brand new use for most people. And we're happy to present this to you and explain exactly what it is and why we need that. To do that, I'm going to introduce Cyrus Takashori. He is the president of Open Road Renewables, and he's going to walk you through a slide presentation that's on the screen, and you should also have a handout so that if it's easier for you to page through, you can do that. So with that, Cyrus, I'll turn it over to you. We have the slideshow open, and it's on the first slide, so you let us know when you want it advanced.
Thank you very much. Tim, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. I've got the slideshow shared for the folks that are on the Zoom. So I assume you guys can just see what I'm showing on the screen. Is that right?
The handouts also.
Yeah, they have the handout, so
Okay,
that's,
perfect.
yep.
Well, as Tim mentioned, Cyrus Takashori, Open Road Renewable.
Yeah, if you could go to page 2. There you go.
Okay, I'll let you know when I'm moving the slides to. Thanks again. And as Tim mentioned, we are Open Road Renewables. I'm president. David Savage is also joining. And the two of us are, chiefly in charge of developing battery storage projects in Indiana, including this project. Battery Energy Storage System, or BESS, is the acronym for what we're developing. And this project is called the Fletcher Power Project in Decatur County. Fletcher Power would store electricity in banks of batteries. These are the same types of batteries, laptops, cell phones, and electric cars, to facilitate the operation of the electric grid. These are safe systems. They've been in utility scale use for over a decade. They have advanced safety monitoring features, and they provide robust training. We provide robust training to local first responders and operators, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And this facility is part of the modernization of the electric grid. It will help maximize the use of the existing transmission infrastructure in the region, but it also is key to more efficiently meeting the demand for grid capacity and for reliability. And I'll talk a little bit about those. Before I dig into the project, I want to talk about a couple things. First off, this is I'm on slide 3 now, the tax revenue that the project would present locally. This represents a significant long-term increase in the local tax base without the need for the kinds of services like sewer or water, police, that kind of stuff, and without significant impacts like traffic, view shed, sound, new emissions, et cetera. And under the proposed tax abatement that we've presented along with this application, the project would pay just shy of $10 million in the first 20 years of operations, again, on a very relatively small footprint with no impacts. Just a little context on why we're here. So these are headlines, and I apologize for the background noise here. These are headlines for from the last month in Indiana, and they really put a finger on a dynamic that is real, and it's not just unique to Indiana, but it is happening nationwide, particularly in the center of the country as temperatures increase and storm activity increases. This is from the Herald Times. Indiana may experience rolling blackouts this summer. From Fox 59, hot summer could lead to rolling blackouts in Indiana, and how rolling blackouts could affect Louisville and Indiana during heat waves, from the Louisville Courier Journal. I'm on slide 5 now. This dynamic of capacity shortage, capacity is actually a technical term, and it's basically what the utilities locally and throughout the region purchase to help regulate the grid, help make the grid more reliable and more stable. And there's a market for service that's an annual market. And this bar graph here shows that in the last year, the price for that capacity service increased by 4,600% from the prior year's auction. And that is going straight to the pocketbooks of your constituents and other folks in Indiana and around Indiana. And the grid operator, which the acronym is MISO, the executive director of that organization, in response to this dynamic, is quoted here saying the region is at an increased risk of temporary controlled outages to preserve the integrity of the bulk electric system. Again, this is not unique to Indiana. Just 2 months ago in Texas, an unexpected heat wave hit 6 natural gas plants. They failed to turn on when they were supposed to, and that resulted in a huge price increase. And we're actually still seeing that price increase today, 2 months later. It hasn't gone back down. So all that's to say, in addition to the tax revenue, there are other benefits to improving grid reliability from this project. One other reason why we're here is because despite the fact that this technology has been around for over a decade at utility scale, the cost has gone way down, and that's what slide 6 shows you. Every utility in Indiana has RFPs out, requests for proposal for this type of facility, Duke, NIPSCO, et cetera. And the third largest co-op in Indiana is putting these facilities at every one of their substations. So this kind of represents an opportunity for Decatur County to, rather than send money to other counties or out of state, to basically keep that money here and to the benefit of Decatur County. So without further ado, I'll introduce the actual project. So Fletcher Power would occupy 15 acres located within a bigger tract, 65-acre tract, at the intersection of West County Road 400 North and North County Road 250 West. It's directly adjacent to the existing Hoosier Energy Decatur County substation, and it will charge and discharge from that part of the grid. The project is set back from the perimeter of the parcel. It's over 500 feet from the nearest residential dwellings, and there will be added vegetative screening to obscure the facility from roads and from the adjacent parcels. And the parcel has been actively disturbed for decades. So we have studied it for wetlands, wildlife resources, floodplains. It's clean from those perspectives. And we have discussed it with the 3 closest landowners, which are to the east and to the west, to identify their concerns and keep them in the loop as the project progresses. I'm on slide 8, and this is actually what the project kind of layout looks like. You can see the containers, the little rectangles, a lot of empty space, be it gravel or setbacks or the stormwater retention ponds or the vegetative screening. It's primarily empty space with about around 10% ground coverage. The containers themselves are about 10 feet in height, and again, significant setback from the neighbors and from the road. This is what the project actual site looks like from the southeast corner looking northwest. And this is what it would look like 5 years after the landscape is installed in the winter. And similarly, this is from the southwest looking northeast before, and again, what it would look like after. This is from the corner of the actual parcel. That first image, by the way, on slide 9 is from the driveway of the Hoosier substation, which from that part of the road. Moving on to slide 11, I mentioned emissions. There are none. Noise, none. Nothing appreciable at the property line. There's HVAC units, but at the property line it would blend in with background noise. No traffic except during construction. No odor, no dust, no solid waste emissions, liquid emissions, vibrations. And there is a decommissioning obligation that I'll mention. I'm almost done here and happy to take your questions, but I did want to walk through the actual conditions that go along with the project. There's a decommissioning plan. It's a bonded decommissioning obligation at the end of the useful life of the project. There's EMS training and access. We would be annually training local EMS for the life of the project at our expense, and the EMS will have coded and keyed access to the facility. This facility would be subject to the latest regulations and standards. This would include NFPA 855, and if Indiana updates their standards in the next year, this would be subject to that as well. These are all, by the way, in written conditions. The emergency management plan would be a site-specific emergency management plan. The EMS folks locally would be trained to that plan, and we'd be providing copies to the county, to the EMS community, and there would be a copy on site. The project will be monitored 24/7 continuously. We also have agreed at the request of the local EMS community to install 20,000 gallons of water tanks on site in the event that EMS would ever need to use them. And there's a Knox box which gives EMS community access to the site, keyed and coded access. And finally, there are specifications for the driveways and the internal roads to be IBC code compliant with turning radii for the EMS vehicles. So we've done a good bit of work talking with the local community about this project, and a lot of these are actually the product of those conversations. And just on health and safety, again, lots and lots of technology improvements, design and safety standards over the last 10 plus years that have gone into the standards and the technology that would be used in this project. And I don't want to be repetitive here, so you can see the screen for yourself. But the one question that we did get at one point was about stormwater, and we will be obtaining a stormwater management permit and including a stormwater pollution prevention plan. But there are no emissions or wastewater, and there are no opportunities for spills or leaks like with a coal ash pond or a pipeline or things like that could contaminate stormwater. This is just briefly on slide 14, the timeline of the project. And as you can see, we've done quite a bit of due diligence. We're at a late stage with the transmission interconnection process. And at this point, we are at a gating step. It's still not a done deal, but at a gating step where the local land use approval is needed before we can proceed to, further mature the project. Our cell phone numbers here. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions. And with that, I think I will hand it over to the board to see if you have any questions. Tim or David, if you think I missed anything, please chime in.
The only thing I'll add to Cyrus's presentation is he referenced the commitments. They are in writing, and you have been provided a copy. If this is approved and the project moves forward, Open Road will obtain ownership title to the real estate, and the commitments will be placed of record against title to the real estate and would be enforceable against whoever owns the property on a going forward basis. So I wanted to make sure that the board was aware of that. So with that, Cyrus went through quite a bit of material, and we certainly be happy to answer any questions that the board might have.
My first question is, what type of battery are you using? Are we lithium? What's the chemical makeup of the batteries?
Sure. These projects will be using a form of lithium-ion battery called lithium iron phosphate, which is it's a trend in the industry towards this particular chemistry, which is more can tolerate a lot higher heat than what's, for example, in your cell phone, and is thus a much safer battery technology. But it is a form of lithium-ion technology that's called lithium iron phosphate.
How long do the batteries last?
The life, you want to go ahead or?
Go ahead. Well, the batteries themselves, so this is a modular technology. So each of these containers it's almost like a server array with hard drives. They have little batteries, and each of those are expected to last upwards of 12 to 15 years. But the facility itself, the batteries can be removed and new ones replaced as part of the normal operations of the facility. So you could think of the facility as kind of a permanent addition to the grid. Over time, we would expect that the batteries are going to get much more efficient, especially over decades. So the footprint of the facility could change over time, but the individual batteries have a lifespan in the 10 to 15 year range.
They just slide out, and then they would be disposed of in accordance with applicable law, not at the site.
I have a question. Are you going to provide this service to everybody, or is this just for Decatur County?
Yeah, to be clear, the benefits that I was referencing, the tax revenue obviously goes to Decatur County. The benefits I was referencing with regard to the reliability of the grid is not isolated to Decatur County. It's something that Decatur County is part of a large interstate grid, but the closer you are to this type of facility, the less likely that some overload or a rolling blackout is going to you. So in that sense, there is an acute benefit to the county. But again, this is part of a big interstate grid, and it's not like the benefit's just going to stay here.
How long is the construction time expected to be?
Good question. So once the civil work, if any, is done, the actual construction is very fast. It could be as fast as 6 months, but it depends on the stormwater civil work. We may start planting the trees ahead of all the other work. Independent from what we're doing right next door, Hoosier will have a little bit of work on the substation, which I think is about a 9-month process, if I recall correctly. So in the application, we've described it as a 9 to 18-month process, but realistically, it's going to be somewhere in the 9-month range is what we expect.
Thank you.
Why are you looking for the entire property instead of just the 15 acres?
It was just the nature of the landowners, interest, and we're relatively flexible. If a landowner wants to just talk to us about the 15 acres, we're happy to do that. In this particular case, that was the landowner's call.
I'm just talking as far as the special exception goes, not necessarily the purchase of the entire parcel.
That simply was the parcel, and certainly we can limit it to the 15 acres if that's a concern. Happy to do that.
Great.
So the power is going to be fed to this system from the substation. Do you utilize these type of battery power systems in any other renewable sources, solar, wind particularly?
Can you repeat the question? I just heard the tail end of it.
Yeah. So this power for this station that you're proposing is coming from the substation it's next to. Do you use these type of systems in any other of your renewable energy projects?
We as a company do not. It is a common trend that these be integrated in with solar or wind projects, but this kind of standalone battery project is distinct from, solar plus storage in that, for example, if Duke or Hoosier were to own this facility, they would they would operate it similar to kind of a peaking gas plant, and not, it would be independent of where the electron's coming from, whether it comes from coal or from solar is kind of independent of that.
And if this were a solar project, for example, we need 100 times more acreage to be able to distribute the same amount of electricity that can be stored in this facility.
So there's no plan to have solar added to it?
No.
No, there's no plan, and there's, frankly, I don't want to get too down in the weeds, but you can go on MISO's website and see the applications which represent who's trying to interconnect over the next 5 or 7 years to the grid, and there's no solar associated with this project or this, interconnection point, and we're not developing any solar in Indiana. So this is truly a standalone battery storage project, and we don't even have any plans to expand it. So that would also be something that you could see in the public domain.
And just to clarify, MISO, which Cyrus referenced earlier, simply put is the electric grid police and regulatory body for Indiana, in a large portion of the Midwest. And you cannot, with any project, wind, solar, coal, gas, battery energy storage system, you can't connect to the grid without getting their approval. And it takes anywhere from 5 to 7 years from the initial application with MISO to a point where you're being able to operate. And that's what he's referring to. If you go, MISO, it has their queue, is what everybody calls it, is public, and you can go look at their queue. And there's nothing associated with this property other than what's being presented to you tonight.
I guess I like that we're training EMS, but I need to understand what is the need for this training for EMS?
Yeah, go ahead, Tim. I'm happy to answer. Go ahead.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So when we're talking about this type of technology, or really any technology, unlike other forms of generation or other aspects of the grid, there really are not a lot of impacts of battery storage. There's no emissions that you have to regulate, either water or air. And so what it really comes down to is planning for the worst case scenario where, whether it's a battery storage project like this or the laptop, on your desk, lithium ion batteries have in the past caught on fire or overheated. And so when you're dealing with a battery storage application like this, even though it's extremely rare, and most of those fires are building-based applications where the building itself caught on fire and that caught the batteries on fire, we're not dealing with that here. Regardless, it's something that there's a lot of design, a lot of standards around keeping these types of facilities safe. And part of that safety, one of the key components, is to make sure, for example, that the EMS community knows that it's there and knows how to deal with it if there is a fire or if there's an issue. But it's not a reflection of the likelihood of an event. It's a reflection of just the best practice to be ready if there ever were such an event, which, for example,
Has there been an event like that at a facility?
There have been events at facilities, but for example, the largest facility right now in Indiana is at an Indiana Power and Light facility in Indianapolis, and it's been there since 2016, never had any issues. The vast majority of these facilities do not have issues, but when there are issues, the entire industry swarms on it to understand what happens. And in fact, the NFPA standard that we're committing to is the 2020 is the last standard. 2023 is the one that we'll be committing to. It has integrated lessons learned from just the last 2 years. But again, the vast majority of these facilities, no issues. The vast majority of battery fires have to do with, like, they're on a top of a shopping mall and the roof catches on fire and the batteries catch on fire because there's this combustible roof. So, so again, it's really planning for the worst case scenario, not a reflection of, this being something that's likely. And we have in-depth engaged with the local EMS community so they fully understand kind of the cases where this has happened, what happened when there were fires, what are the issues, what are the, are there emissions, are there leaks, how do they prepare for it, what are the things that they would need to feel comfortable that this is, this is not going to present some major public risk. So, and we
That's
think
what I'm trying to figure out. I look at the picture and it almost appears like, are these metal housings?
They're small like that, so they're
I'm
short.
trying to figure out
Yeah.
what burns.
Yeah, just very, very little. The batteries themselves can. So just to add on to what Cyrus indicated, one, this would be $130 million investment, $130 million investment. People are not going to spend that kind of money on something that's likely to burn, okay? The fact that people are building these and investing that much money is a reflection in the confidence that nothing like this is going to happen. But as Cyrus indicated, you prepare for the worst. And we approach this like the fire department does, to be quite honest. The fire department trains, they want to be prepared for everything. And then you hope that nothing happens. And it's the same approach we've taken here based on our meetings with emergency management services in Decatur County, including the head of emergency management. And if you look at commitment 3, that whole section of the commitments, which goes through in detail what's required, we're submitting an update annually, the emergency management plan. That's that approach. That's that fireman's approach of you prepare for the worst so you're ready for anything. And that's what you need to do. We wholly expect that nothing is ever going to happen. Okay, ever. And so, but you prepare for the worst. And when you know what to do, when the emergency response providers know what to do, then that's the best approach you can take, and that's what we want. 2 other things. One, there's a reason why these, if you look at it, it's almost like a checkerboard pattern. There's a block of batteries, and basically it's almost like a storage bin that you see on trains or on trucks, etc., about that size. You enter in one side and you can pull the batteries out and you exit. If one of those should, for whatever bizarre reason, catch fire, what the emergency response fire department will be trained to do is let it burn. And that's because it will be limited to that single unit. That's why there's a bunch of them spaced apart. And it is certainly, we'll lose that before anybody gets hurt, period. And so that's never going to happen. And the only thing that needs to be done, and the reason why there's 20,000 gallons of water on site, is if one does catch fire, you spray down the ones close to it. Occasionally, it doesn't have to be constantly. And it keeps those from catching fire. You let it burn out. The emissions that come from one that burns is not the same thing in terms of emissions you get if a single family home caught fire and burned down. Same type of emissions. So it's safe, but you prepare for the worst because that's the smart thing to do.
Thank you.
Cyrus, this is Jerry. Question on the battery replacement. If they wear themselves out in 10 years or technology times them out in 5 years, do we see a possibility of a reconstruction? Because as Mr. Oakes has presented, we take the battery out of the storage component and we put another one back in. If that infrastructure changes, do we see possibilities of at some point in time that changing and basically we start at the ground and start up again? Could you address those?
I'm happy to. I think the answer to that is if that were ever necessary down the road, it would require an application and an amendment to the permit. It would require an approval. So what we're describing here is not some continuous or repeat construction. It is construction of the facility and then the replacement of the batteries as a modular unit being a function of the maintenance of the facility and not involving kind of the level of, construction that we're talking about. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you.
I'll tag on to that, Gary. So as you pull these failed batteries out, you talk about a disposal plan. Do you have details on what that disposal plan is? Are they recycled? Are they put in the local landfill? What are these failed batteries? Where do they end up?
Yeah, happy to address that. There's actually a whole second life to these batteries. They're very valuable even after, their optimal life in this application are exhausted. So there's something like 90% recyclability and a whole industry on refurbishing and reusing the batteries. As far as this site is concerned, the thing that, to be relevant to this particular land use decision, the thing to understand is used batteries go into a sealed bin and are periodically removed from the site. They don't go into your landfill. They go to a recycling facility. But as far as this site is concerned, that's really the most relevant aspect of the plan.
Any more questions from the board?
You spoke about a 20,000 gallon water tank. Is that illustrated on your diagram?
No, it's not. It was something that we agreed to as a condition after the fact, but I believe the condition is specifies that the EMS community would be in a design and location that is to the satisfaction of the local EMS community.
If you look at commitment number 7, it reads, as part of the facility, the owner shall install, fill, and maintain one or more water tanks totaling not less than 20,000 gallons for use by local firefighters. The location and design of the tank shall be approved by the Decatur County Emergency Response prior to its installation.
Some clarification to all that, Rick. This was reviewed by the technical review committee, who consisted of, who reviewed all of this? Who did you send it to?
EMS, Brad, David from Adams Township Fire Department, Tim Ortman from Highway, Danny Peters from the council, Jerome Ewing from commissioners, Brian Robbins from EDC, Doreen Drivey from the assessor's office, Rhonda Hager from the auditor's office. So,
I just wanted to make it clear that it was
yes.
ran through the technical review committee.
And Greensburg Fire, Adams Fire, and St. Paul Fire.
So that's where the commitments were developed.
I guess that answers one of the questions I had. You said you have 20,000 gallons, that's stopgap measure until a fire can show up.
That's not actually a stopgap measure. Nothing's gonna happen with that until the fire shows up.
Yeah.
They're gonna haul more.
Yeah, just keep on.
Correct. Yes.
We were concerned that we would not have enough water to have a continuous stream on surrounding batteries for, days on end while this one burns out. So they agreed to the 20,000 tank on site to kind of help that.
So is that to say the fire departments did not have issues with it?
I think it wouldn't be brave enough to speak for them, but this is kind of the impression I got, and certainly anybody else that was at the TAC meeting can speak to. But I think there was a healthy amount of concern and skepticism from all the fire departments, and especially the head of emergency management. And so we took 2 hours to go through everything And I think by the end of the 2 hours, I think all of the fire department reps that were there were satisfied.
Any more questions from the board? Okay, I'd like to open the floor to public comment. If anyone would like to step up to the mic and speak on behalf or against the measure,
I just got a question.
head on up there and state your name, please.
Yeah, Roger Finley. Who manufactures these batteries and where are they manufactured?
That will be their answer. I'll give them time to rebut.
We'll answer that when all the public says it.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Come on up, Brent. State your name.
Brent Muckeride, one of 3 people that are living behind the substation or by it and next to this facility. I'm not here to be obstructionist. They've reached out very professionally to me and the other landowners, and I appreciate that. The only thing I ask is we don't have a arm to ensure the safety. I hear some, well, the fire mine took 2 hours. Well, we're the only one that have kids living by it. Nobody else does. And I'm pretty sure probably none of them do. So I understand, I'm a businessman, I understand how it goes. But I'm looking for, what can we do just for, I appreciated your question about the parcel and why we're asking for the whole 66 instead of just 15. Those are things where there's a 2-hour meeting, all this is developed, none of us are ever included. We've had a couple texts with them, they've been very professional, I get why. I'm looking for this board to help us protect our investments, $130 million. That substation out there has already cost me probably $70,000 in residential value. What's this gonna do to everybody on that road? Not everybody's on that road, but we are, and our families are. And I think what they're doing, the project, the way they're going about it is professional. I'm not here to criticize anything, but I'm asking what can we do through you guys to help protect our investment and our families and what needs to go on to protect the rural area, which is why we love Greensburg. So I appreciate the comments, and the specific ask about the parcel, but what else can we do? You know, the substation came out in front of us. We didn't even get asked really about the landscaping around it. Not from anybody on this, I know it wasn't you guys, not from anybody on this committee, not from anybody in town, not from Hoosier Energy. It gets stirred up and it gets 2-foot shrubs put around it. And I think the residents of our county are worth a lot more than that. Why we're willing to work with companies like this to help our county in the areas that it needs help in. Somebody has to look out and put some long-term provisions into what can they do to help us. And again, not here to be standing in the way or doing any of that. But the Hoosier Energy has been a good neighbor. I don't sit here and complain, they've been a good neighbor. But I think the way these things go about, the residents around the area need more voice. And I don't know how that's done other than people sitting on this board.
Do you have any suggestions on what we should do to make this better?
Well, I think questioning why we're going 66 acres instead of 15 is a good start. I think questioning the safety, when I hear a question of how the fire department received it, but the lawyer had to answer it, that concerns me. And I'm not saying you did anything wrong. I'm just saying the perception of that is not easy to stomach. So looking for what other safety, I'm looking, you know, is it going to be landscaped with a berm around it? Or is it going to be cheaply done like the one that sits in front of me now? And I know you guys have a lot on your plate and not everybody can be happy, but it is affecting residential values, which is why everybody loves Greensburg. is a rural community that we built here and that we raise our families in. And we don't even get to be hardly a part of these discussions. And I do commend Cyrus and the company and the communications that they've had. They've been professional. And I know why they have to keep it short. I know why they don't involve us till 2 days before meetings going on. I get all that. But what can you do for us? Main is safety. 2 would be the look, preserving our residential value. And then 3 would be the long-term expansion and making it worse. And what provisions can be done to protect our community. So that's all I got, and I appreciate the board taking the time, and I think you guys have asked a lot of good questions. I appreciate Open Road and its honesty and the commitment that they talked to me so far with.
Any other comments?
Brad. Mark Moore, just a nearby resident. I reckon my only question I do have, go along with all the other questions, is this company planning on bonding the roads or having some type of interlocal agreement with the road during construction? I know the county, I actually work for the highway department. We've been down these roads before where companies come in and build infrastructure and tear up the roads, and we're left to do the repairs for them. So, like I said, I live close to Brent. These guys, it's a road I travel with my Jeep daily almost, just to ride through the country. And I think it's something that should be taken care of, looked at before we go too far. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Any other comments? Go ahead and give you the opportunity.
Sure. Cyrus is going to answer several of these. I'll start with maybe the easy ones. Start with the first question. We've actually already submitted to the county a proposed road use agreement. And pursuant to that agreement, prior to the commencement of construction, the county would designate the specific route for any construction equipment and to get to the site. Then that route would be videoed, so we know exactly the condition of the roads before construction starts. Then when construction is over, if the roads have been damaged at all, we are responsible for restoring the roads to as good or better condition as existed before construction started. And so that agreement has been submitted to the county, and we anticipate fulfilling and reaching that agreement that would be signed. So that we do take care of that. With respect to the size of the project, we're more than happy to limit the special exception to just the acreage that's shown on this site plan. That's it, no more of the property. There is and has never been any intent to expand this project beyond the roughly 15 acres that it's shown on. And so we're happy to make sure that happens, and any condition of approval that should occur, we would welcome it being limited to just that acreage. So with that, I'll turn it over to Cyrus, and he can answer first I think the short answer on in terms of where the batteries are manufactured, and then we can get back into what we can do for surrounding property owners. So Cyrus.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. And yeah, I do want to reiterate that the 15 acres, I mean, it may even have been an oversight. I didn't realize that our application gave us the right to do anything beyond the 15 acres. So happy to limit the permission to that 15 acres. On the question of, if I could ask someone to put the slide number 2 up for just a second, and then move to slide number 8. So slide number 2 shows the profile of these facilities. This is lower profile than a single family house or a barn or a greenhouse or a structure, any kind of structure that certainly that substation. I really feel for our neighbor there to have a big substation like that right in front of his house. Some of those structures are loud and they're 40, 50 feet tall. And I understand that there may have been landscaping planted, but obviously you're not going to be able to effectively screen a structure like a substation with landscaping. This, on the other hand, setbacks and screening are, extremely effective at making something like this have no visual impact. And on top of that, it just has a different profile. It's a neat, rows of what you're seeing on the screen there. If we could move to slide 8. Okay, slide 8 shows. Are you on slide 8? I can't quite tell.
My numbers are different than yours.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. It's
That's okay.
the layout of the facility. Some yellow boxes on the screen.
I think the next one. There you go.
Okay. Yeah. So I just wanted to point out that I think one of the reasons we laid the facility out this way was because we really wanted to get away from the neighbors, and that's why we've put the stormwater. So what's not shown on this map is that there's a whole transmission corridor running north to south, existing, just east of what we're showing here. So, and then east of that is the substation, and north of that is the closest residence. So between that residence and our landscaping is 500 feet. And again, the landscaping is going to be more effective than anything that, was even possible on that substation. I have committed to the neighbors that if they have any requests in terms of even putting landscaping on their side of the property line, that we're completely open to that. So to the extent that the gentleman that came and spoke would like to reach out, that offer stands, and we're happy to invest in kind of on their side of the property line, planting trees so that in addition to what we're doing on our side, that's addressed. The other thing I'll mention is we have every intention. In fact, we'll be inking lease on the remainder of the property for agricultural use. So there will continue to be farming on the rest of the acreage. That itself will create some screening. I don't think that's the case on the substation property on the Hoosier side, but I'm not that familiar with it. But it is going to remain in ag, in perpetuity, or as long as we control the property. Let me see if there was something else. I guess let me just mention, we know how to develop good projects, and sometimes our initial application is going to have already considered a lot of this stuff. So when we come forward and we show you, a pretty robust landscaping plan, setbacks, all of this kind of stuff, I don't want it to seem like the representatives, the local representatives, wouldn't have asked for that. I mean, we already integrated it into the project. I'm sure the board would have asked for it if we hadn't. So just a mention there. And then the last thing, I think someone mentioned who manufactures the batteries. So like everything, there are a lot of components in these batteries, and they're manufactured all over the world. But a lot of the lithium ions coming from China, and that's a problem that the industry, the U.S. industry is tackling head on. So what we've seen just in the last 24 months is huge investment in sourcing that stuff domestically and manufacturing domestically. It takes time to do it, and it's not just our industry. It's the electric cars, it's the cell phones, it's the laptops. It's a issue across the board with our electronics that we need to manufacture more of it and source a lot more of it at home, so we're not exposed to some of the issues globally that we're seeing now with our energy sources. So I hope that helps answer the question.
And by way of example, and some of you may have seen it, was just announced last month that there's a $2.5 billion with a B dollar battery manufacturing facility that's being constructed in Kokomo. It'll take a couple years to complete. So it's an issue that the United States and the folks that are capable of manufacturing those batteries are, as Cyrus mentioned, are tackling, and it's happening. And this project, When's the earliest it would be, construction would start, Cyrus?
What year?
Yes.
At earliest would be 2024, more likely 2025.
And so I'm assuming that no batteries have obviously been ordered yet, so.
Correct.
So hopefully the US is caught up by then. That's what we're hoping.
So here's where I'm at. We've got quite a bit of commitments here that I think we want to make some changes to, for sure. Your landscape plan that you submitted is somewhat generic, which I know they always are at the onset of a project. I see them every day. I would really like some more detail there, for sure. And I would like to see some cooperation with the neighboring landowners on that matter. I think that's gonna be a big help to this situation. And I don't want to speak for the entire board, but I do believe that we only want the 15 acres to even consider it.
Agreed.
And with all of that in mind, and the fact that we have quite a bit of commitments that we really need to, I think, review a little more thoroughly, I would like to table this until the next meeting.
Brad, can we discuss one more thing?
Yes, we can.
On page number 1, can you look at number C?
Yep.
Does that,
All of
Is that
those, all of
stretched
these
out?
are things that I think we need to, as a board, work together and within the next week, as far as all these commitments, we need to review, really do our homework on and kind of work back and forth to make sure that this is what we want to see. Because I agree, I mean, that's one that we need to get some dates set,
right, I
or
just
a
think that
timeline
yeah.
set for
12 months and then we
deactivation.
got 12 months and then 12 months to decommission. I'm stretching it out a little bit, but I just want to
And a
want you all to look
decommission
at that.
plan. As far as, you know, what that's gonna entail, how quickly it'll happen.
And the disturbance, they say they'll put the facility back to 3 feet
What,
below
3?
grade. I think 3 feet, we usually go 5 feet
Or disturbance.
or disturbed area or.
Yeah, basically what your recommission of the site would be.
And then in a couple of places, this is just so that, you know, we can put this together. A couple of places, they identify the Adams Volunteer Fire Department or the Decatur County Fire Department, and it should probably just be jurisdictional.
Yeah,
I think we're
So
gonna
that
go with some fire
you never
districts,
know,
so
yeah.
we wanna just put the jurisdictional, fire department. And then I see on number 6, you've added as to adequately for the turning radius of access road and emergency vehicle.
And that's
That's
just within the
good.
facility.
Yeah. Those are only my own concerns. Well,
I have a few that I think we need to edit, get back to them. And then I would like to see a landscape plan with a little more detail.
Hey Brett, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Is it out of order?
It's out of order, but come on. You're gonna be working for them anyhow.
We're gonna talk on this.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna talk.
There's sites already that I've heard about, and like when the substation came in, they showed the data, the emission data coming from facilities such as that with that size, and then they came back and measured that and proved it. Is there concrete data that's been supplied about, and I trust, but I've been taught to trust but verify. Is there data from other facilities that show us the actual zero emissions, zero noise, zero, that we can?
And those are the things we need to know. And
Yes,
those
we
are
would.
questions that I need.
We would like to see some data around existing structures.
It should be easy enough for you guys to obtain.
I mean, there are no emissions, and then the only real noise is the heating and air conditioning units. Yeah, that truly is it. It's, you know, if you're familiar with electric cars, these are very, very, very similar batteries. kind of eerie if you've ever had one drive by you. They're quiet.
Okay,
Thanks, Brett.
thank you. And we will be in touch.
Okay. Do we need to, is it continued, is there a vote, or are we good?
No, we can table.
Okay. All right, well, thank you very much. We do appreciate the board's time, and we look
Thank
forward to working through these issues.
Yes.
So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cyrus.
Still moving with Cyrus, and he's a bad guy.
Oh. Okay. Next on the agenda, BZA petition 2022-8, Steve Rubel, Strand and Associates for Decatur County Board of Commissioners is requesting way too many things.
We have to try and be efficient, Mr. Sheet.
I appreciate that, Steve. I think we can work through these probably one at a time, might be the simplest. So the first special exception, as provided in Decatur County Subdivision Control Ordinance number 320, do not include any fire hydrants at the proposed site. And we'll explain each one and then we can vote on them.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be great. That work.
Vote all together?
Yeah, is that okay, Missy? The only thing is, we've got one at the end that is a contingency, but
We can strike it.
we'll strike it out.
Wonderful. Thank you. As Brad mentioned, my name is Steve Rubel with Strand Associates. We are the design consultant for the county commissioners for the county highway project. And Brad did mention we have several requests tonight, so I will try to be efficient with our time. Brad, my presentation is a little bit out of order from the agenda. Are you okay if I just go in the order of my presentation?
Yeah, what have you got first?
Considering together? Thank you. So you can see here the parcel itself is outlined in green. To the north is straight up. I should put north arrow on there. But the fairgrounds is to the north and east of the site slightly. The airport is directly to the west of the site. That kind of orients you, and you can see State Road 3 and the Lowe's Pellets and Grain to the north and the west a little bit. So that kind of gives you an idea of where the site is located. And that's a summary of the variances and special exception request. Yep. Just to give you an idea, this isn't specific to any of the requests, but this is a model that was generated based off of our 60% design, and it'll help kind of place you on the site and give you an idea of what the county's looking to build out there, and it'll help you in your consideration, I think, of the variance requests. The building in the immediate foreground is office space for the county highway department, and they'll report there on a daily basis. Immediately to the west of that is the office and shop area. So that's where they'll do a lot of their maintenance. On the far end there, the open buildings are where they'll store their salt material. To the north is a fuel canopy. That would be a multi-use canopy. Multiple agencies will use that as their fueling site for the county. And then on the south end of the site is what we refer to as the cold storage building. That's where they'll store a lot of their equipment. So variance request number one is for fencing. Obviously, for a facility like this, there are security needs and issues out there. The county is looking to use an 8-foot tall security fence with the 3 rows of barbed wire on top for added security. It will be screened. So the picture on the right is the type of screening that the county would propose to use for this fence. That does not match what is allowed by the zoning ordinance. So that's why we have to come in here and ask for permission to put in that type of fence at this particular facility. Our second request is for dumpster screening. The zoning code requires the dumpster area to be screened. In this particular instance, our entire site will actually be screened. and dealing with gates and fencing immediately around a dumpster for a facility like this is an operational issue. Since we are screened visually 8 foot tall, we're asking to not have to individually screen the dumpster. There are 2 green rectangles located there on the site, which are about to scale for the size of the dumpster and would indicate potential areas to locate the dumpster on the site. Variance number 3, we're requesting to use a gravel surface as opposed to a paved surface for what we're referring to as their pipe and material storage area. If you all have ever been out to the county highway department, you know that they have a need for a lot of outside storage for materials and sometimes equipment. We think this is the best option for this particular facility. They'll have heavy turning movements on that, very low volume traffic, and it represents overall about 1.09 acres to give you a scale. The site in its entirety is approximately 18 acres as shown here, so it kind of gives you an idea of what we're asking for. Variance number 4 is a buffer yard request. We're requesting to not install the buffer yards on the south, west, and north sides of the project. The buffer yard requirement next to the farm field and the airport is 80 feet. To the north is a property that the county will maintain ownership of. The requirement there is 6 feet. And the requirement on the east side is 80 feet. And we agree that it is certainly good and appropriate to keep that buffer yard to the east. The adjoining property there is a farm homestead, and we're working directly with them to make sure that we provide the required buffer yard and landscaping there that's going to help mitigate their view of the highway facility.
You'll have a berm there, Steve? Is that the plan on the east side?
That's what's been talked about. So this just kind of gives you an idea of what you are looking at out there. This picture is at the north property line facing north, so this is back up toward the airport offices and so forth. So north of there is empty field right now, owned by the county commissioners. So it just kind of gives you a perspective of what we would be buffering against if not granted this variance. Here is facing west, so you can just barely make out a gray strip up there, and that's the existing airport runway. But again, you can see there's not much out there besides the airport, which is the immediate adjacent property. This is facing south from the south property line. This is currently agricultural field, operated or owned and operated by Mr. Beggs. So again, agricultural field. Thank you.
You have any questions? You understand all that? Basically, your buffer exception is simply because of your retention area, correct?
Well,
it's in the corner of the new building.
Yeah, the corner of the new building encroaches into what would be the buffer yard. Buffer yards are there to, kind of separate dissimilar uses, from being impacted. In our particular instance here, I don't know how this use is going to impact those adjacent uses. And I don't know that that's the best use of the county's resources to put in those buffer yards in this particular application.
Any other questions?
As we look at what's there now, and as our predecessors have always told us, what's going to be there in the future. For example, what could be developed on the airport, for example, other than the runway that's out there now? If those people come in, if somebody comes into that, how are they affected? How does that get mitigated?
So one of the things that we have to do in our development process is we actually have to get a NDOT aviation approval. So our Department of Transportation administers that permitting process. And we actually have to go in and get a permit from NDOT who coordinates with the local aviation board to make sure that our use is not going to interfere with their operations at the airport. And I understand that that's something that's outside of the control of this board, but hopefully that gives you some indication that our proposed use is not going to have a negative effect on the operations of the airport. I can't speak as to what the airport might do in the future.
Anything else, Gary? Great. Thank you. Hearing nothing, I'll look for comments from the public or questions. We have none. I will look for a motion. We will be voting on, we'll go ahead. Somebody wants to make a motion.
I make a motion that we vote on BZA 2022-8.
I'll second.
Okay, this is gonna be for A, B, C, D, and E. Is that enough detail, Missy?
Yes, if you're not requesting any changes to the way the variance is presented. That's being left off because if you approve it, you won't be out.
Yes.
I changed it. And I'll read the votes. Gary Fisher, yes. Rick Cohen, yes. Joyce Brindley, yes. Brad Schutte, yes. Jamie Livingston, yes.
Okay, Steve, your petition passes.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. It's a thorough presentation. Final item on our BZA agenda is BZA petition 2022-9. Justin M. Gifford for Robin Carmer of Hillbilly Corner is requesting a permanent special exception in an A1, A2 zoning classification to run a farmer's market and sell flowers, produce from their farm and other local grows, ice cream, and cold cuts and cheese. This falls under the Decatur County zoning ordinance number 925. Property is currently owned by Tim County and located at 7336 West, County Road 300 South, Greensburg, Clay Township. Would like to make a correction on that. The way it was read on our agenda is as a permanent special exception, and on the application, it is as a special exception. So we want to strike the permanent part out of that.
What's the difference?
It's not permanent.
I understand that. Is there a timeline on it?
That's what we're here to find out.
Okay. Well, I thought.
Okay.
Okay, guys, not a whole lot has changed since we were last here, although we have, I think everybody knows from the correspondence that we've had over the last month. I provided a memorandum of understanding. We have talked with Melissa and Chad, the commissioners, as well as with Krista. And our position kind of hasn't changed from the standpoint of we believe we have met all of the requirements from the county, accepting an inspection from the building inspector. The reason we couldn't get that done before the last time we were here is because we didn't have the design release from the state. We have received the design release from the state. Krista has received that design release from the state. And at this point, as far as we're concerned, all that needs to be done to meet with the county's requirements, pardon me, to meet with the county's requirements is for that building inspection and occupancy for the actual store part of the building. Everybody recalls that building, which is on the front of this packet, was constructed to have both a residence and a garage, as well as a small farmer's market inside. And that is in compliance with section 925, which does require that a residence be on the same property as a farm market. I think there was some non-specific concern about whether this qualified as a farm market because there are going to be meats and cheeses in there. And I sort of jokingly said, I'm pretty sure I could drive from Nashville over here and stop at every farm market. We're going to find meats and cheeses and jams and whatnot in all of them. I was at Bush's last weekend over in Columbus, and guess what? I bought sausage. So I think that this is an appropriate use. I think Robin and Tim have gone above and beyond. They built a really nice building. We are more than happy to discuss the needs from the board regarding operations. But from my discussions with Tim and Robin, everything that they've talked about doing is totally in line with the normal operation of a farm market. So at this point, I would entertain the board's thoughts as far as our request for this special exception so that we can try and figure out what we need, if there's anything else we need to do, and probably most importantly to my clients, how quickly they can get it.
So we're looking at a special exception, which would allow them to do everything that you had discussed.
Yes, under section 925.
And I think the only concerns that were brought about were the size of the area. And if we were to put any covenants on if property changed hands down the road or any changes to what is actually happening.
As far as I know, we have no objection to any of that.
Okay.
Tim and Robin don't have any intent on selling the property to somebody else. What you see is what you get out there on that property. Just so everybody knows, what is in this packet is already part of the record, so it's nothing anybody hasn't seen before, which is why I didn't go around sending you a whole PowerPoint. Nothing new there.
Yes,
So I need some thoughts on.
okay. I appreciate them doing this because Bernie is a small town. There is no store there. That is a place where produce and a little meat and cheese would be a great place to put there. There's a lot of who live around that use that. In fact, I've been there and I think it's really nice. The only thing that I worry about is if you get real crowded, is there plenty of parking? You know, I just would like to address that, but other than that, I think you guys have really, really struck out here so many times that I feel bad for you. But I I've been there, it's very quality. It's very nice and clean and everything in there is really great for the local people.
Tim, Robin, do you guys want to partially answer that question of the parking? Because I think it's probably kind of impossible to answer right at this moment because we haven't operated.
Well, in the beginning, it was just a little shed, and there was not enough parking. Now the building's in the front, we have made almost that entire thing. We're only, I think, 10 or 15 feet away from the front of the building for parking. The little shed will be gone, I'll gravel that,
Okay.
and we're just gonna
Plenty of parking.
pull it, yeah, so, I mean, that's not.
Do you know approximately how many cars you could get on that lot?
Right now, I'm guessing probably 7, and once we get the shed out, it'll be 10 probably.
It is a small place, but it's very nice. Okay.
So I guess my first thought would be, is the special exception would stay with them as property owners only, with that property.
As I understand it, that's just how it works. So, yes,
As
we
long
have
as
no,
it's
we have
not
no, we have no
permanent.
objection to
That's
that.
why we took the permanent off.
Yes, but we have no objections that the special exception staying with Robin and Tim.
What about hours of operation?
Right now, we're open noon to 5. I don't know that we would probably extend it a little bit further in the evenings. But as far as the morning hours, I don't know, she may open it a couple hours earlier, but I mean, I don't really see that either. But in the evenings, she would probably extend it a little bit for people getting off work, things of that nature. Because right now, I mean, it's just, I mean, I was there today and sat in the parking lot, a few minutes, typed a few emails and things of that nature. And I bet there was 3 cars that pulled into the parking lot, wanted to know if the new building was open. And the new building wasn't open, so there wasn't, I mean, just older people that doesn't really want to run to Greensburg to get something, you know? And it's just in and out, you know, and this is the whole deal is this is hers. And I mean, it's kind of ours, but it's more hers. I got the farms to run, I own my own business, and I don't have time for it, but I'm going to make time to help her. But, I mean, it's all hers, and that's the reason why I've been in this battle with her. I mean, she had 64 people come and go in a day's time just to buy a little produce, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's a community thing, you know?
Krista, the other thing I would say is I know that some of the concerns with the hours of operation with regards to lights, in talking with Robin about this, like we're talking about in the summertime when people are coming to get ice cream after ball game. And since the sun's not going down till 10, I don't think we're gonna see the operations being open until 10.
I'm 57 years old, I'm ready for that.
Well, it is seasonality essentially. I mean,
Yeah.
your hours, it'll kind of go with the
Oh,
season.
And is it going to be seasonal?
No, I'm saying the hours would probably be seasonal. I don't know if the whole market, and I don't know that we can restrict it to be, you know, sort of seasonality.
What about the occupancy of the structure?
What's
Do
great,
we know what? It's not like permanent.
typically your state fire marshal will give you an occupancy rating.
Well,
So,
and that's gonna determine the parking that is required, so that's something we're gonna have to know. And if there's handicapped parking and
Well,
required.
to the best of my knowledge, this is in the commercial facility, so it's not gonna be covered by the ADA. Not gonna be a requirement for handicap parking. In terms of the fire protection, again, it's not a commercial facility, so I don't think the state fire marshal is involved in this. With that said, there is a firewall there. When Robin and Tim thought they were gonna have to rezone the facility, it was built to commercial standards and they spent extra money on a special, pardon me, a fire specialist to come out to address the fact that, hey, right now we think this has to be commercial. What do we need to do in order to not have to put a sprinkler system? But
Right,
since
but
this
this is a commercial structure.
it's not a commercial structure,
According to the state, it is.
It is not.
under your own rules, it's not a commercial structure, it's a farm stand.
It has nothing to do with our rules. The state says it's a commercial structure.
Okay.
That's why you have a construction design release.
We did the construction design release because you made us.
No,
The
the
building-
state requires it.
yeah, because you
The
have to
state
get with
requires
the Board of Health doing your inspection. That's where it all tripped up, which is irrelevant. You've got your state design release. So it doesn't matter. You've already got that. What we're
It
here
specifically
for.
says the private garage shall be separated from the dwelling unit and its attic area in accordance with the state code. So these are all,
And the
These are
5-inch
all-
firewall is there.
Yeah.
Double sheet 5-inch fire caulk at the top.
fire code.
Each joint is staggered and sealed.
And that's a requirement from the state.
And that was done, yeah, that was done in the very beginning. Because that was inspected already.
But just so you know, this is a commercial structure. And it has to be. It has
That's
to
the
be.
building you guys asked us to build, that's what we
No,
built.
it, I didn't specify any building. But
So
it is
you
a
have
commercial
that.
structure.
You've got that already under control.
Everything.
So what we're
Yes.
looking at right now is a special exception for you to do business on that property. And we are gonna basically look at, with it being not a permanent special exception, it stays with you guys, which is what we're looking for.
And we're fine.
In other words, if you sell it, it's done.
But
Can't be
don't they
anything
live there?
else.
Yeah.
Isn't that where you live in this?
Our daughter lives there. She helps run the store.
Oh,
Right,
so
but-
you don't live in the.
But as long
It's
as,
theirs.
As long as it's a
Theirs
family,
and our daughter.
the section 925 says as long as there's a family member living there, and there's less than 2 non-family members working in the store, that's when you fall under that section 925. So the fact that their daughter's living there means that it is complying with the section requiring residence.
So your daughter has to stay there.
No, they
925 is not.
Oh, I know, but I mean, it has to be family, right?
No, 925 does not require a family member.
That's a different,
That's a conditional use. That's what they're under now.
Okay.
yeah, we're
Aren't we all-
we're looking at the
we're-
special exception here so that they can continue with the building that they've got to do this business. The special exception will allow that.
That's correct.
That is why we moved it to the special exception, and it keeps it from rezoning. We don't have to rezone it, it stays the same zoning classification, and they can do their business. So, and there's also, if there would be any stipulations that you guys thought we needed to place on that, that's why I asked about, you know, what would be sold. You know, we've got that listed here, this is what's gonna be sold there. That's the intent of the special exception, so there's some control over what is happening there.
Was there not a discussion that you could see about this last, meeting?
Yeah, but we can't do that because we don't want to rezone it. The commissioners didn't want to rezone it, so that's why they pulled that.
And the DVC approved it, the commissioner rejected it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep,
We haven't pulled it yet, we requested to table it
Well,
this discussion.
yes.
And part of our understanding with you guys would be, we will pull the rezone petition. We don't want to rezone anyway.
Yeah,
And just for the record, we never wanted to rezone it to B2. As property owners, business owners, we never, ever, ever wanted it to be B2, ever. We were told that was the only way. That's the only reason we went forward with the rezoning is because we were told we could only operate in business if we rezoned. Just so that's on the record, that was not our idea. We did not want that.
so technically for a special exception, it's something we rarely want to do. And that's why you were guided down that path. But then the commissioners pushed back on that, and that is why we are now, because a special exception isn't something that we really want to do a lot of. But in this case, in order to make everything work, this is where we're at. So
I
that's,
understand that. I
that's
just
why
want
we're
people
here.
to know that that wasn't our idea
Yes.
or our intent.
thank you. Board members, thoughts, questions?
How do we keep track of creep from happening here? We stay in the same building, but we do more and more and more and more and more, and then it blossoms out.
We restrict growth. And growth has to come out.
You can't add to the building.
Yeah, I mean, if the building is the way it is.
That's how you restrict it. We would have to come to you to say, oh, we want to add to
I
the
mean, if they
building.
gotta add to the building,
And
they're
we
gonna have to
can't.
get a building permit.
And you
You
can't.
can't do that.
And Gary, that's one of the reasonable restrictions we're happy to agree to.
If you've been there, Gary.
I grew, I haven't been inside.
Oh, okay.
I grew. I think it's Josh.
So do you have any thoughts then on, well, they better be
What
quick.
is
We're gonna probably
If
hear
it's-
those thoughts out here in the audience.
If it's a farmer's market, we're talking, what, you said you're selling ice cream, cold cuts and cheese. Is that what you said?
Deli meat and cheese, hard dipped ice cream, produce, flowers, everything you see at a farmer's market.
In the crafts.
Yes.
Farmers markets typically, according to the state of Indiana, restrict the resale. So if they have produce that they're growing on their land, they're buying it they're not reselling, they're selling what they produce and what they make.
It, not on
No.
it.
Okay, board, you got anything else? Okay, I'll ask for comments from the public then.
May I approach
Yeah,
this?
you sure can.
Excuse me, my name is Larry Goodham. I'm attorney for Bill Family, who's retained services. And so much of what we're talking about here has to do with some of the history, I think, that becomes important looking at. One of the reasons that my client is very concerned about what conditions can and will be put on to this use by boards, because it has become, in concept, just what we heard tonight, larger than what it was when it began. When it began, it was that little red topped produce stand that you see in that triangle on board. And I've got pictures of the same thing. Mr. Fenley lives at the very top of that. Doesn't show his house, but that's where he lived. If you look at where that red topped produce stand is currently, but as you've been told it's going to be removed, that was there based on your previous grant, or the zoning board's previous grant of a conditional use for a 5-year period. It began in 2016. It expired because they expired by your own rules in 5 years. And at that time, they wanted to operate that. They said they would also put a residence on site and they would be selling produce. Nothing about ice cream, nothing about crafts, nothing about everything that is ever sold at a farmer's market, nothing about meats, nothing about cheeses, none of that. So then they came in, and that's where this thing got sideways. They came in not too long ago, a few months ago, and they said, we'd like to get our conditional use permit. We'd like to have it extended for another 5 years. Do the same thing. We are going to go ahead and build a residence out there. And so they got that approval from your zoning board to do the same thing they've been doing. And frankly, my client and maybe others here speak for themselves, weren't too concerned about that because they had lived with what it was. It was not a terribly big operation. That's great. It provides a public service to those who want to shop there. And it wasn't that much of a problem. But now we're talking about something more. After they got the conditional use permit, saying you can continue to do for the next 5 years what you did for the last 5 years, then it became apparent that what they wanted to do was sell meat and cheese and ice cream and attract people for resale of crafts on the site. And so the concerns were raised by the neighbors. What's next? So they did finally build this building. What we haven't talked about tonight is that building does have a residence in it. It's less than 1,000 square feet. The building itself with the garage, which is attached, huge garage, and the store is over 3,000 square feet. And so it's really intended to be a bigger operation than it was. And so this mission creep, if you will, is a great concern to people like my client and probably others. And what you have, and I think one safety issue that should be considered by the board is if you look at the area where this is, and there is now a much larger building, and I guess the little red top facility is going to be removed. It's going to become more of a parking lot. But you have the confluence of Highway 46, you've got the County Road intersection right there, you've got a driveway to the south, and you've got their driveway to the north. You're going to have, if you bring in more traffic and more traffic to buy the things that are more prolific than what they were before, then you're going to have increased traffic concerns. Getting then to what my client would like, we're kind of assuming that this board is going to grant something. They had a conditional use there for 5 years. They asked for it to be extended. It was extended. We're
we're looking for some reasonable conditions. And you talked about most of them. What are the hours? Are they gonna be noon to 5? Are they gonna be noon to 6? Are they gonna be 1 till 7? I don't know, but I think they need to be set out so that my client, who lives in a very nice home at the very top of that photograph, and others who live there, the lady who lives just to the south of their driveway, so that they can sit out on their porches at some point in the course of a day, a summer evening, and enjoy something beside cars coming and going, headlights, whatever noise is involved. So we'd like to see some restrictions on the time of day. What about the days of the week? Is it gonna be Sunday through Saturday? Are we gonna have Sunday off? What condition are we willing to put on that? Certainly, the one condition that was talked about, and I think is on this board's mind, is that we would want for there to be no opportunity to make this more permanent or to sell it to anyone else. Already, I think that a number of the people who will be working there won't necessarily be living there, but it sounds like it's going to be a family operation, and as long as it's restricted in that fashion, I think that's okay. But I do think it's absolutely critical that this not be put on the block for someone else to then expand it further or do more. I don't know about the expansion, whether you ought to limit and consider limiting the expansion of the products that they're going to sell. It's one thing to say I'm going to sell tomatoes and melons and things and corn on the cob that we grow at our farm. It's another thing to say we're going to buy crafts from China, where most of them come from, I think, and sell those, and flowers and ice cream and on and on. I mean, if you were living close to this, I have a feeling and suggest that you would be at least concerned to have some answers to those questions before you vote. So that's what my client's asking. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brad, do you mind if I respond that real quickly?
Well, is there any other comments? If not, can you come on? Oh, hang on.
I'm Bill Finley, as everybody knows. One of the things that I'd like to bring up is, I don't know, somewhere I've read where you guys said this was always going to be a business. If anybody noticed that presentation that these battery people just did, and they came in and wanted to do something, and one of their biggest jobs is to prove to everybody that we're not going to bother the adjoining property owners. I think they call that a social compact. They had already talked to the neighbors. They already met them. They've already discussed things with them. I didn't get that opportunity. It's called a social compact, something that people need to really learn. They had trees up. It's so far from my house, it doesn't bother me. I mean, some trees in front of Elaine's house would make a huge difference. I know they've already got stone, but there's things you can do to fix that. I'm just asking for her. Do something for her. Car door slamming. I wouldn't want to go out my front porch. She moved to the country to be in the country. She didn't move there to look at a Dollar General. I mean, Dollar General plants trees around every building they do. Look around. It's a social compact. They do that to make peace with the neighbors. How many special exceptions have the board ever granted? I mean, I can't find it anywhere. I mean, I know you dropped the permit, but is there anything we can make an example of? Something that this is how it's done? Or are we gonna?
We're making an example right
here.
here.
Make it right now. Yep. Oh, that's good. I mean, but I think there ought to be a lot of conditions involved. Your hours. I think Elaine ought to at least get some trees. I wouldn't want to look at that. It's a nice building. I'm not saying it's not a nice building. It's just not what it's not why she moved to the country. I think that's all I can say.
Thank you.
one is only 29,000, or 2,900 and some square feet. You can do the math, it's on the blueprint. That's the total property. I mean, the total building. And also Mr. Finley lives up there on the end, or doesn't live there. The building's been constructed for I don't know how many years. I was told he didn't get a building permit at first, things of that nature. And he still doesn't have occupancy. And the building is still not done. So how many more years do we wait before all that is taken care of? So I really feel like Mr. Finley doesn't even live there and hasn't lived there in I don't know how many years the building hasn't even been built. I mean, has been built. But I mean, he doesn't have occupancy, he doesn't live there. So that's one thing I just wanted to address about the square footage and the building on the end. It's not even got occupancy.
Okay. Justin, you want to?
Very briefly, we talked about this last time I spoke, but the traffic concerns with respect to my colleague ignore the fact that we've got State Road 46 one place, and then we've got 300 running over to 3 that people use to cut through to get back to 46. These are already busy roads. I don't believe that road noise is a legitimate concern for anybody to be voicing if you're living on 46 or 300. So unless the board has any other questions for me, I will get out of the way.
Questions?
Yes, I do know that the lady lives very close to 46 anyway. That's a busy road, you're going to see that. And now correct me if I'm wrong, but when you first got that piece of property, did you not put in for building a house with the side of it where you could do produce? Am I right?
It was
That was the first thing you ever had anything to do with.
First thing we done.
So in other words, you put up the little thing because you didn't have money right at the time to put up your house yet.
And we went.
But you already had it all planned
Yes.
out to do this.
Yes.
Okay. This is such a small operation that you have. I have no idea what the problem is here because I've been there, I've listened, I live close to it. I see nothing wrong with it. In fact, a lot of my people from Bernie, from Forest Hill, from up by the junction, they all go there and buy produce. You go to Bush's, you go to Whippers, any little farm stand, you're gonna be able to buy a little bit of cheese and meat if you want. I don't understand this. The house you have now is not an eyesore to the community at all. The only objection, the only thing that I would wonder about is there gonna be enough parking? You're not selling enough that the whole town's gonna come out there. But that's the only problem I had with any of it was if you're gonna have enough parking. But I know that you folks have been here many times trying to get this straightened out.
So here's where we're at. We need
That's where we're
to
at.
develop what type of stipulations we want here and find something we can vote on. My current thought is we should put a time length on the special exception. That way, if there were any issues, they could be readdressed. Is there anything that says that we cannot put a 5-year special exception?
You can put time parameters on it. I think you would also want to put the transfer to a different owner.
Correct. Absolutely. I mean, I'm just wanting to include that. That way, I mean, we can let them do what they are going to do. And if there is a big issue, it could be addressed. Otherwise, we could just re-up it and on we go. That seems to catch a lot of things. Obviously, it cannot be transferred to different ownership. And if we want to look at anything as far as a restriction of hours or days of week, I don't really think that's going to be an issue because with the help situation, I'm sure it'll restrict itself. I mean, most of these markets do. You can only do what you can do.
Well, you're right there.
And I mean, that's it.
Plus, you're not gonna be open all year round. I mean, if you are, you're not gonna do a whole lot of business all year
So do we have any thoughts on hours of operation for days of work?
I think that they already answered that, didn't you say?
Well, we're never gonna be open on a Sunday.
No, that's.
That's completely out. I
Okay, so
won't
that's
consider it, it'll never happen. We will never be open on a Sunday. That's my day, that's God's day, ain't doing it. So that's one thing that will never happen, so.
So there's one.
And through the season, the produce season, I don't know, 11 to 5.
I think you want some evening hours in the summertime.
This is the thing, with the ice cream, I was, the only reason that I wanted to add the ice cream to it is for the high school kids to be able to come after a ball game and have a darn ice cream and have somewhere to go and then go home. You know, let's stop by Hillbilly Corner, have an ice cream, and then we'll go home. You know, that's the only reason that I really added the ice cream was for the youth of this community because they have my heart. They have one place to go at South Decatur, which is Dairy Queen, and there's no place by us. You gotta drive all the way to Greensburg. And so I was really just gearing towards the youth of our future to invest in them. So that's why the ice cream got added. And so if I'm going to do ice cream, then I'm going to have to be open until it starts getting dark. Nobody goes and gets ice cream at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
And nobody gets in the winter when it's short out.
Right.
Yeah, I don't have a problem there.
No.
I think the seasonality of that business will set its own
Gonna
hours.
dictate its hours.
And
Nor I
it
don't know
already
that it's-
has.
Nor that I don't know if it's this board's duty to tell somebody how hard they can work or not. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I agree.
I understand that the traffic issues and some of those other concerns, but, yeah, I think it'll manage itself.
So right now I'm looking at a 5-year special exception, not allowed to transfer. It's just with you. Gary?
Does this gentleman that's representing Mines have any specific recommendations for us?
He gave them to us earlier.
Anything more specific after the conversation?
Hours of operation, days a
Well-
week, not permanent.
I hear the hours of operation kind of going out the window. I mean, I heard the petitioners say themselves, probably noon to 5, and now there are no operating hours. I'd like to see something reasonable there. I think my client has asked for that, and I frankly expect it. I mean, I think that's reasonable. We're now talking about, I mean, that's great, and it may become a great hangout for kids to come and get ice cream. So what does that mean? If a lot of them like it, then are we, summertime, we may be talking about 9 or 10 o'clock before it's dark, before they get ready to go home. I don't know. Is that what we want? We've talked about the fact that you're concerned about parking. I'm concerned about parking. I don't think it's defined yet what number of parking spaces there are going to be. So to just open it up and say, do all the things you want to do, which is more than they've done the last 5 years. I mean, people are looking at it right now and saying, you did okay for the last 5 years. Well, they were not doing all the things they're talking about. They weren't selling ice cream to kids for the last 5 years, and they weren't doing some of the other expanding, the meats and the cheeses, and being a locally operated, if you will, kind of a farmer's market. So it seems to me that's what we're asking, is for you to anticipate that because they're getting a use, they're getting a special exception, which you're allowing them to do more than they did in their conditional use, then I think you might anticipate some problems.
That's my thought for putting the time frame on it, so we have some control over the situation.
You have no control.
It's 5 years.
5 years.
To see what happens.
They have to come back and do it again.
And
And we're not gonna police them. I mean, I don't see that. It's
I mean, one thing you might be able to do, because I think their hours probably are gonna flex during the year, maybe say no earlier than this and no later than this. You know, give them that window if you don't want it open at 6 a.m. and you don't want it open at 11 p.m. And one other thing I think we talked about, but I haven't heard yet, is no expansion of the structure.
Right.
Yeah,
We can't do that anyway, there's no room.
We don't want to do that anymore.
There's
Then
no
we can
septic
include that.
room, there's no room.
I don't think that the other farmers markets are ever open past 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
I
We're
thought
not
most
gonna-
of them are not.
No.
That's my part of the conversation here, is I'm trying to strike a balance between
Right.
what they want to do for the business owner and be successful.
Well, let's hear some hours.
Restricted, at the same time represent what the other people who live around do.
Well, let's hear some hours then. I need suggestions, because I'm not really much on restricting them. I think it's gonna restrict itself pretty easily.
I agree with that. I think this is idea, is good, not earlier, not later. So, I think that's.
I don't know that we can say hours on business. I
And
mean, I just don't want to get into this game.
Is everybody all right
This is
with
where
10
your
p.m.?
hand
Gary,
Everybody okay with 10
Gary,
p.m.?
are you all right with 10 p.m.?
Better 8 p.m.
Can we-
Meet in the middle somewhere.
It's gonna help mediate this. We're not gonna get
Well,
So here, we've got it. This is it. We're gonna, no later than 10. You're not gonna open any earlier than,
Whatever the public wants.
yeah, because nobody's gonna be.
By all means, let's build a business together, everyone. Come on,
I agree. I'm not real thrilled about.
let's get on our,
restricting
on
business
Team
hours.
Hillbilly. Let's all build a business together.
So-
Who wants partnership?
We've got a 5-year special exception. No transfer of ownership,
No expansion of building.
no expansion of the building. And not
Signs.
open later
We're
than
doing on signs. We're not gonna put up a big sign, are
We
we?
have to.
I don't know that it would block your drive, since you don't live there.
But, yeah.
We,
Let's get
and
it
the
figured
sign,
out.
as long as they're within the county ordinance.
We don't.
have to have.
Yeah, they're not.
There's no sign. You have to request it.
I'm
They
sure
have to
that you
request it.
don't want to interfere with none of your
You have
neighbors.
to come
And
back here.
we
You
have
always
done
have tried to
everything
do-
our neighbors have asked us. I don't like the pop machine, I got rid of the pop machine. I don't like the porta pot, I hid the porta pot. I don't want this, I don't want that. Turn the light off. I've done everything they've asked,
We talked about,
everything.
we talked about the highway being so dangerous, but the mail lady had to put her
Mailbox
mailbox
on
on
the
the
highway.
46 because somebody didn't want
Didn't
their.
want the mailbox next to hers, heaven forbid.
So we
Nancy,
put
you
it,
have those? You guys, that's it.
Are you talking about me?
I have one more question. In the petition,
Robin.
it says, self-flowered produce from their farm and other local growers. Is the produce from their farms and other local growers, or is it being shipped in from Florida?
We do sell things from Florida.
In
It's
the
never
spring
been
of
a
the year.
secret. I put it on Facebook. It is here from Florida. This is from
understand that.
Tennessee. Everything is staying within the
But it's in the
United
petition.
States. And I've done that since day one.
I don't have a problem with it.
I'm asking, that's because it's in the petition.
Problem with that, you.
I mean, we can remove that as a restriction as far as I'm concerned. You can put that in there.
I think we leave it in. I'm not gonna take it- I don't think we should take it around, we're out there, we're out.
We've been doing this for 5 years.
So
It's
that's
still from the
everything.
same place.
We have all of our items.
We did, I don't think I heard you mention that it would be operating between Monday and Saturday, Monday through Saturday.
No Sundays.
I have
Did
it.
you say that? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I apologize.
I can recite what I have.
Go ahead.
Days of the week, Monday through Saturday, hours of operation no earlier than 10 a.m., no later than 10 p.m., no expansion of the structure, no transfer to another owner of the parcel. To continue the operation, they can transfer but not continue the operation. And it would be subject to a 5-year review.
No trees,
Make a motion.
no trees.
You want them to pile trees for you too? I mean,
I make a motion, that was all.
you mean trees on their property or your?
Rick,
Oh, there.
I second.
Where?
I mean, you guys do that. I've seen you do that to others that you've given any kind of special permits to. I've seen you add trees. That's impossible.
Do I have a second?
yes, you do. Rick and Jamie.
Oh, he don't need a vote?
Yeah. George T. Oh, sorry, Rick.
That's all right.
You can't vote today. question?
We're done.
Oh, okay, well, I just wanna state a fact. No one asked me about a mailbox. And I thought it
You
was
can take
stupid
that
to
up
put
with
it
her
on 46.
afterwards. That's not for this meeting.
Yeah, okay, it was brought up in the meeting.
And this is being made open tomorrow. Regardless of what the vote is. I'll read the votes. Gary? Nope. I told her she did not. There you go. Gary Fisher, yes. Jamie Livingston, yes. Joyce Brinley, yes. Brad Shooty, yes. And Rick Cohen, yes.
Petition passes. Thank you. And that is the last item on our agenda. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye. What about?
You're next.
next.
You're- That's a whole nother meeting.
Yeah, you guys got it.
Don't worry.
Do that for nothing.
Enjoy that.
Oh, God bless you.
You're a whole nother group of people.
I did it, I used to do that.
Now you know what not to do.
Well, I'm going home.
That's not.
I've got a dumb question I just asked, that say they put all this money into this place and they've got a good business and everything's hunky-dory, in 5 years, are you guys gonna shut it down?
If they
No, if they don't do things.
If they don't stand on one foot and go like this, yes.
Just shut them down.
That's
only. That's only. What makes a difference? I don't understand. Not to mention those 2 minutes right
Every time. I notice that too. It should have switched.
Which one? The woman in the back.
Are we ready?
What makes a difference?
Chris,
What
ready?
makes a difference? If it's cheese or crackers?
She's got to get everything turned on.
Ice, right? Well, then you got kids, damn those kids.
Call the July 6, 2022 meeting of the Decatur County Area Planning Commission to order. To comply with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, Decatur County requests participants in this meeting to complete a voluntary anonymous survey is available on the table in the back of the room. First item on the agenda, approval of June 1st, 2022 minutes. Everyone should have received them. Anyone have any additions or corrections? Here's none. I'll look for a motion to accept.
So moved. I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Minutes are approved. First and only item on our agenda is APC petition 2022-16. Anita Sparks requesting to subdivide approximately 15 acres into 3 parcels and to rezone 2.99 acres on each parcel from A1 zoning classification to an A2 zoning classification for construction of a single-family detached dwelling on each parcel. This request falls under Decatur County Ordinance Section number 926.7 and 915. Property is owned by the petitioner. It's located just south of 3558 North, County Road 850 East in Butte Township. Anita, if you could come up and.
Sheila is on the Zoom.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to announce that she is here on Zoom.
Sheila, can you hear us?
There it is. Sheila, can you hear us?
Who's Sheila?
Sheila.
Sheila Kirkhoff, who's one of the board members.
Oh.
So that you can have a full vote,
Oh, okay.
because we need so many to.
Minimum of 5.
minimum
Sheila,
of
are you
5.
there?
Yes.
There we go.
And I'm never gonna sell ice cream there. I'm never gonna sell ice cream, swear to God.
Sure.
Okay, I can't hear Sheila.
Yeah, she said.
She said I'm
she's
here right there on the screen.
She's typing in.
Okay.
All right, Anita,
We're good.
Yes,
come on.
hello. So I have a 15-acre field that, I don't know, do you need a picture of it?
We've got
We
them.
have a picture of it. It's up, I think.
That's not it.
We've all got it in the package.
Yeah, we've seen it.
Hold on.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go. I have, as a soil test, people test the soil for the 3 lots. I've got a driveway petition, for the 3 driveways, has been okayed through Ardmore. And, done everything to try to be able to sell some more property on this road. I mean, I don't see it being an issue with the, traffic or anything like that. It'd be single family dwelling.
Any questions from the board? Ryan, this is us in your neck of the woods.
Yeah, I know right where it is. I mean, it fits exactly with what's across the road, I mean, it is tillable ground, I'm assuming. And then you own everything on the other side of that creek, right? That stream, so that little
Yeah.
triangle's not gonna end up landlocked, it's gonna probably end up with that field. So I don't see any issues. I drove by it just to see if they're put any markings on the road for driveways, because that does come up through there as a hill. But, at first I thought a couple of those were just too steep of banks, but there's a spot off every lot to get a driveway out. I'm sure Mark saw that. That's why Mark approved all 3 driveway permits. I mean, to me, it's cut and dry. You can have all the conversation you want, but I don't need any.
It was, it is marked. We originally had flags, but I went and bought some of the paint and it's painted on the edge of the road. The first driveway would probably be across from Tom and Laura Littmer there with the pond,
That's the
about where
first.
those 2 driveways are. He just wanted it so far from the hillcrest, and his only stipulation was so far at the south end, so far from the curve, and at the north end, so far, had to be so far from that hillcrest. And there's room for all 3 driveways to be in that spot.
Lots sold?
Huh?
Are the lots sold?
No. I figured I better find
Wanna
out.
buy
I
one?
was gonna say,
I'm not jumping the gun.
Is one for yours since you sold your house, or?
Well,
Moving
it's
out
a
of town?
possibility. I don't know if I'm gonna put a house there or over on the other side, on the north side above where that pond is.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And that's hilly
Yeah.
rolly.
Right, stuff there.
Yeah, that, you can't do a whole lot with it, but it's real nice for
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
a
It's
backyard.
good hayfield. Keep the erosion down.
got any other comments?
I'll take those for the vote.
Got a motion?
I'll second. For APC 2022-16.
Debbie, would you ask Sheila how she votes?
This one will take longer than the discussion.
I'll read the other votes. Paul Stone, yes. Brad Shubie, yes. Tom Hunter, yes. Tom Cherry, yes. Ryan Kennelly, yes. Yes. Sheila Kirkhoff, yes.
You're all good. Work with Krista on whatever you
Petition
need.
passes. Thank you.
Huh?
Work with Krista on whatever you need moving forward,
Okay, thank you.
permitting and stuff.
Thank you, everyone.
And that was the only item on our agenda, so I will look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Second.
all approved.
So what was the first?
What you don't want to be at.
So I never go to those. No, but I mean, what,
Board of
Zoning appeals.
appeals, okay. Well, thank you. I'm glad it was easy.
Nothing yet.
See ya.
Comers?
Okay. Busy, aren't you? It's your crazy busy time of year.
Approved it for 5 years.
Bye.
That's what we're here for. That's why we're so thankful.
Grab some
Post, that's no good, sorry to hear that.
Yeah, that's,
We've lost.
crazy.